the top one more time. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of All the WrestleManians, the podcast. I am your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And I'm Rich Sigwald.
And I hope you caught our recent episodes. We had a great interview with wrestling and pop culture scholar Dr. Mark Willett. We did a really fun review of an absolutely bonkers AWA Superclass show. That one was a lot of fun. And so recently we've talked to scholars, we've talked to wrestlers, but today we're really excited because today's our first time kind of talking to somebody from the business side of pro wrestling. And as you've probably gathered, it's also our first time experimenting with the live stream. So we'll see how all this goes. And our special guest today is Jerry Stephanitsis. Jerry is the Director of Operations for Virginia Championship Wrestling, based right here in the Hampton Roads area. He's a Norfolk native and has been with VCW since 2004. As the director, Jerry has also served as a manager for several VCW talents during his time with the company, leading to his current feud with Benjamin Banks of VCW Tag Team Champions, the Golden Pinky Society. So we'll talk more about that, of course. But first, we're going to play just a little promo from the director talking about his upcoming tag team match for those VCW title belts.
Paint cans off the back of the truck today? I'm an athlete. Understand me? You see this medal? You see this medal right here? You know who gave this to me? The late, great Lou Thesz. Back in 1996, I trained with the great Lou Thesz, and I was awarded the best wrestler in summer camp. That's right. I'm a Lou Thesz trainee, you idiots. I'm a shooter. I'm going to hurt you so bad July 29th. I can't wait. I can't wait. You know, I might be 39, but I'm turning back the clock to 1999. Because that's when I was the third in the Tidewater Amateur Wrestling Conference. The only reason I lost was due to technicalities, understand? Benjamin Banks, Diamond Victor Griff, July 29th, Kroc Center, Liberty Lottery. The reason and I are going to embarrass you idiots. I can't wait. I'm going to embarrass you both so bad. I'm going to take your tag team championship. That's right. I'm going to wear tag team championship in Virginia. Jerry Stephanitsis, just think about this for a minute. Jerry Stephanitsis, VCW tag team champion. I want you to sit on that, let it ruminate a little bit, breathe it in. Because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. Whether you like it or you don't.
Oh, man. That's a hot promo. Welcome to the show, Mr. Director, Jerry Stephanitsis. Welcome.
Thank you. And we sold 800 tickets the day that promo went live, so that makes me a draw, right? That's how. We didn't really sell 800 tickets. But that would be great. It'd be great if
calling
that
you big
was the
money
case.
here.
Right.
What's your catchphrase? You're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome is my that's my sign off. Yep.
Very nice.
It started as a rib, but it's a thing now. So I just keep rolling with it.
I mean, I like it. You're encouraging people to show the gratitude that you're due. As the top talent that you are.
When you're the boss, you should be taking credit for everything. Is what I've learned. I think that it's important when you reach that status of figurehead. Every decision is basically yours. So the result and the credit should go to you. I mean, that's how business works, right? That's how most businesses work.
That's fair. I think that's right out of one of those books I read. I'm not sure which one, but it was definitely one. Maybe it was Mein Kampf. I'm not sure. Well, so you and the Reason, of course, are set to face the Golden Pinky Society. That's Benjamin Banks and Diamond Victor Griff at the VCW Liberty Lottery coming up Saturday, July 29th at the Kroc Center here in Norfolk. You seem, I'd say, pretty confident about your chances to get that team and your ability to hang with two guys who are much larger than you. So how do you see all this playing out for you and the Reason?
Well, I have the best tag team partner anyone could ask for. So that's really why I'm as confident as I am, because although I am, I said it in the promo you played before, right? Like, I'm a legitimate shoot athlete. I have medals, I have a huge trophy on my trophy case here in the house. I mean, I could legitimately hurt these guys if I wanted to. If I wanted to grab a hold, they wouldn't know what to do. I mean, it's that simple. But the Reason, I mean, he's been a wrestler for many years. He's been a champion all over the place. He's in great tip-top athletic condition. I talked to him right before I called you guys, and he's on his way to the gym right now getting ready for this match. And I bet you Benjamin Banks is cosplaying somewhere right now. He's probably dressed up like some anime character, like hanging out in his house. Like these guys, him and Griff, I don't think they take what it takes to be a champion as seriously as they should. The work you have to put in. I was at the gym for 72 hours this week, and it's only Tuesday, so do the math on that.
That's impressive. Yeah, no, that's
pretty
really
impressive, right? Yep. So we're just, I think our chances are pretty good. I think if I were making bets, I know the casino in Norfolk's not open yet, but if I were making bets, I would make bets on us, walking out there with a tag team championship.
Yeah. I mean, I follow the Reason on the Facebooks, and he's always at the gym. I mean, I don't even think he does anything else. He just works out and posts pictures of his workout results. So I think that's pretty much all you got to do.
Yeah,
it's not real if you didn't post it. Yeah, it's not real if you didn't post it on social media. You have to make sure you document it, and so that way everyone knows what you're doing. That's how it goes.
That's
Facebook
fair.
official. Yeah. So you mentioned just a bit ago that you're the boss. So if you're calling the shots or running things, you're the director of operations, how do you feel that it's fair that you're actually representing talent and that you're working and you're challenging for championships? Like, it seems unfair.
Well, what is unfair, and this wasn't my choice. Let me just preface that as well. So the way this whole thing shook out, I'll take you back to the beginning. So Benjamin Banks was one of my clients many years ago, before I was director of operations. We had a great relationship. He had much success underneath me. And then he got a little too big for his britches, and he turned on me. And I was so embarrassed by the whole escapade, I disappeared for 4 years. I decided I'm just going to work behind the scenes. I'm not going to manage anybody. This guy was completely ungrateful. I don't want to have to deal with ungratefulness ever again. And then, some time went by, and I kind of, COVID happened, and we were all locked indoors, and I missed it. I really missed just being around wrestling, and then this opportunity came for me to become director of operations, and I was like, you know what, let me get back out there. And business has been wonderful ever since I became director of operations. Let me preface that as well. But I've always kept in the back of my mind what Benjamin Banks did to me. I just wanted to plot the course and pick the right time to get my revenge on him. So I've done that. I've embarrassed the guy like 52 times since, he's been tag team champion in VCW. I'm going to continue to embarrass him. But it was Commissioner George Pantis who actually stepped in and said that we have to wrestle them now in this tag team match. After I defeated Benjamin Banks in like Goldberg-like time at ODU. I mean, that was one of the fastest matches, I think, in VCW history. The guy had no chance. So I don't even know why we're wrestling them again. But it is going to be nice. I've thought about it, and although it might seem greedy for a boss to also, have a championship, it would be like if I made myself employee of the month. But I think, you only live once. And I'm going to be 40 in September. I think for my 40th birthday, all I really want for my birthday is to walk out with a VCW championship just so I can go in the record books and have that on my on my resume.
Right. You're a regular Vern Gagne. You just want to put the belt on yourself and carry the company, right?
Vern's not the only one who did that. I mean, Dusty Rhodes, it's so many different promoters. I mean, Von Erich put it on each one of his kids. I mean, you've got all these different promoters where that's happened, but it takes an athlete to go out there as well and to perform and to win a championship. It's not just about being put in the right position to win a championship. It's about going out there and delivering, and that's what we're going to do on July 29th. We're going to deliver, and we're going to embarrass the Golden Pinky Society. And my hope is that Benjamin Banks realizes he's much better suited for the Comic-Con conventions. He's much better suited for doing his podcast, whatever he talks about in his podcast, and that he just kind of rides off into the sunset and disappears after I embarrass him.
So then you're going to square up against them, go face to face, no shenanigans, no tricks, no ambushes before the match.
No, what does that even mean?
You're gonna face them fair and square, mano a mano in the ring.
Why wouldn't I? I mean, I'm a fair, impartial, unbiased individual. Like I wouldn't need to take a shortcut. I've every athletic contest I've ever won in my life has been off of my merit. So why would this be any different? I'm confused by the way you're stating your question. It seems like you're coming at me a little accusatory. Is this gotcha journalism? Like, what did I sign up for today?
I was there at the ODU volleyball arena. I drove 4 hours to come to that show, and what I was looking forward to was a Jerry Stephanitsis match. But what actually ended up happening was an ambush before the match and a beatdown. And then you just put your pinky on top of the guy.
Benjamin Banks tripped on the way to the ring is what happened. And the reason was trying to help him back up. And when he fell, he hit his head. Concussions are very serious. You don't know what kind of damage they can do to a person. So if you watch the tape, we helped him up into the ring. It's not my fault he couldn't get up. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I feel like I was very merciful because I could have really done some damage to him. He was completely unconscious. Like I said, if I wanted to grab a choke or grab his arm or grab a leg, I could have broken his bones and he wouldn't even be able to defend the tag team championship. But I was very kind in only dropping an elbow on him and then pinning him with the pinky. And you're right, I did pin him with a pinky. It's a little much, but it was necessary because, like I said, he embarrassed me, and sooner or later it needed to come back around to him.
I'll drop it, but I never saw Lou Thesz pin anybody with his pinky. So
I think Jerry was very generous. I think basically it came down to he didn't want to hurt. He didn't want to hurt Banks. He really, he did him a favor, with helping him into the ring and then just using the pinky as opposed to, something that he was in trouble. He could still have brain damage or something. We don't know. So. I appreciate that you took care of your opponent. That's it's a big part of the business. So that was good. I thought that worked out well.
Always, yes, you're right. Always watch out for your opponent. That's the first rule of wrestling. You always need to watch out for your opponent. You don't want to really go out there and break bones. I mean, you want to win the contest, but you don't want to take shortcuts. You don't want to punch anybody in the throat and close up their airway. You don't want to make it so they can't earn their living. Which I could have done. Again, I could have done this to Benjamin Banks. I was very nice in what I did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if it embarrassed him. It's it's his fault.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good segue to the next question. You've been called the Miles Davis of the art of pro wrestling. You've been called the Vince McMahon of Virginia, the Tony Khan of the Tidewater. I'm sure there's some other alliteration out there that you've also been called. You could be the Vern Gagne of Virginia for all we know. We don't know.
That's another one, yeah.
So I guess my question, though, is it difficult being such a both creative and financial genius in a business so full of ungrateful fans and talent?
It can be. It can be very challenging. I think sometimes, the fans, here's the thing, okay? I wouldn't do this if I didn't care about the fans. Why else? I mean, sure, the money's nice, right? But I wouldn't do this if I didn't care just a little bit about the fans. What I don't like is when the fans treat me with no respect. Because I feel like I treat them with the utmost respect. I mean, they get great matches every time VCW hosts an event. I put my own body on the line out there. I've wrestled. This is going to be my fifth match in 19 years. And as someone who was never trained to be a wrestler, aside from my great training with Lou Thesz many years ago, but never had any conventional training for any of these other matches I've had in VCW, I feel like to put myself out there and risk it. I mean, that's pretty impressive. I feel like what's his name? The guy who liked to take all the, not Super Dave, the other one, Evil Knievel.
Yeah.
Evil Knievel. That's right. I'm also not just the Miles Davis. I'm also the Evil Knievel of VCW because these are some extreme risks that I'm taking, especially like I said at my age. I mean, most guys at my age are retired by the time the 40 rolls around in wrestling.
Yeah, you're pretty old. Yeah.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. So you do seem to have a fair amount of heat with the fans, as you mentioned. I think at the last show that we went to at the ODU, there were definitely signs that said Jerry sucks, and I saw a boo this man sign. What do you think is behind that? Those kinds of reactions. Is it just jealousy, or is it something a little bit more?
Bitterness, probably too. Bitterness that I'm successful. I mean, I think it's not just. I don't think it's just jealousy. I think people just. I think when people can't find success in their own lives, that and they have an ego, and they think that they deserve success, but they can't find it because they just don't have the qualifications or the talent or whatever they need, then they need to find somebody else to put the heat on, so to speak, right? And I think that's what the fans do to me. I think maybe they haven't had the success they wanted in their own personal lives, whatever that means, and they see a successful individual like me running a successful independent wrestling promotion, and it upsets them, quite frankly. And I think that's why I get booed. That's why there are signs. That's why people say obscene things and approach me in public and say obscene things to me, which does happen, which within itself is a whole other story. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really what it boils. I think I'm not no psychologist, but I don't think it's necessarily anything to do with me personally. I think it's to do with their own shortcomings.
That's fair. I'm a very deeply unhappy person. I take it out on everyone I meet.
Maybe it's because they just don't trust you.
Well, what's not to trust? I provide great wrestling shows. You drove all the way down here, right, for our event. You had a great 2 events, right, in one day, and you had a great time, right? Great wrestling, enjoyable, well worth the ticket price of admission. I mean, what's not to trust?
I saw your hit on Benjamin Banks. I saw the hit. I saw that happen. So that's
Benjamin
why
Banks.
I went back to the dollar store and I bought a marker and a bright colored board and wrote "Boo this man" on it.
So
just
was
for
you.
you.
Okay,
Yes.
so now we know. So Tim set you up. See, he knew. He probably knew that was you. He went and set you up. So that's okay. That's all right.
Well, Jerry, he had the sign that said "Jerry sucks."
No, that definitely wasn't me. All I did was you asked me where the dollar store was. I figured you wanted to get some of your candy and something for you and your wife's anniversary. So I just pointed you in the direction of the dollar store. That was sort of the end of my involvement there.
You drove me to the dollar store.
I don't remember that at all. Do we have some other questions for Jerry?
Wait a minute now. Yeah.
We're gonna talk about some more wrestling and not how he sucks or doesn't suck.
All right. We'll give you a softball now, Jerry. We're done grilling you. I'm not going to come at you anymore because I just can't anymore. I can't with you. So, anyways, the Liberty Lottery is coming up, and that's like your guys' big event, like WrestleMania. Perhaps we should change our show to all the Liberty Lotteries. Can you tell us about what the fans should expect at this event? Like what kind of matches the Liberty Lottery and you got some big names showing up here for you guys.
Oh yeah.
So what's going on?
So the Liberty Lottery originated in 2007. So I believe this is our 15th because of COVID. We couldn't, we had a couple of years there we couldn't, but I think this is our 15th iteration of the Liberty Lottery. I have to go back and check the records on that. But the Liberty Lottery itself is kind of a combination of Lethal Lottery, Royal Rumble. There's a little bit of several matches involved in it. So there's 20 participants. Names are drawn at random to determine the order of entry. There's about 90 seconds in between each entrant, and the twist on it is that the fans draw the names at random. And I believe this year the way we'll be doing it is they'll be drawing them as fans are entering the building. So I recommend everybody who's coming to the show, if you want to draw a name and maybe run the chance of your person, whoever's name you draw, winning the match, you need to show up early because the intention will be to draw them earlier in the night. And then that way when the match happens, it's a little more, flows a little bit better, with moving forward. But the Liberty Lottery has been our most successful event for, the duration of the time the event's been around. I mean, it's always the biggest drawing event of the year in Virginia for independent professional wrestling. We don't expect any different. We have Matt Cardona, the indie god. Matt Cardona is our special guest that night, and he'll be wrestling and participating in a meet and greet. He's wrestling Mr. Excellence Brandon Scott, who I know you guys interviewed and who I used to manage. So
big fan.
Be nice to me, Rich, because I heard you were kissing Brandon Scott's butt when he was on here too, and Brandon is a good friend of mine. Okay, so if you ever want to have him back on the show, you need to make sure you treat me with the same respect that you treated him, okay? And especially after being in a big match with Matt Cardona. I mean, Brandon's already been multiple-time Virginia heavyweight champion. He's probably the best guy in the state that's this side of Magnum TA. I don't know who's better than Brandon Scott that's been from Virginia. But, I think his chances are very good that he walks out of there with the win over Matt Cardona, which is really going to just elevate his career into another stratosphere. And then in addition to that, we have Steph DeLander. She's making her debut, and she's known to be the manager of Matt Cardona, and she was in NXT as well, and has had a good career herself, and she'll be wrestling Erica Lee. Now, obviously, the tag team match we talked about with ourselves, and then Virginia Heavyweight Champion The Boar will be defending his title against Joe Keys, the number one contender, who ended a pretty impressive win streak of Tim Spriggs, when we were at Old Dominion back in June, and then attacked Boar after his title defense as well. So there's a little bit of friction. Certainly, that's an understatement between those guys as well. But it's going to be a great event. And then also, let me add this one little asterisk too. So the Liberty Lottery match, the winner, historically in a Battle Royal or Royal Rumble, they have like a specific championship they challenge for. So the Liberty Lottery, you can challenge for any championship. Tag team, Liberty Championship, Heavyweight Championship. And we've had a wide variety of people that have, walked out of there and challenged for each one of those titles. So you really don't know what's going to happen. You really don't know who is going to walk out of there and which title they're going to go for. And it is the most unpredictable night of Virginia wrestling.
It's also the first VCW event that my wife and I saw when we moved to the area last summer. We had only been here about a month. And I saw the poster, or I saw it on Facebook, so I was like, holy crap, we have to go to this. And it was a lot of fun. Good times. Was it Dirty Money took that one, or he had
last year? I think it was last year. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I like that guy. Yeah, should be a good time. We're big fans of Mr. Excellence, and big fans of the Boar. That guy's rad. This is not one of our questions, but have you been? How do you think the Boar's title reign's going so far? And do you see him kind of hanging in that role for a bit? He's a big tough dude, and seems to be able to bring it.
It's going to be hard for somebody to take him down. I'll say that. I think he definitely his win over Logan Easton LaRoe was unexpected, for sure. And I mean the crowd certainly enjoyed it. And he's fought some tough challengers so far. He defeated Brandon Scott. He defeated Brian Brock. I mean he's gone through some tough challengers. And I if he can get past Joe Keys. I really don't know who's going to stop him at that point. I mean, he's definitely Hogan-esque in his status in VCW as of right now. If I had to compare him to anybody,
he's really into Kevin Nash. He would probably appreciate a Kevin Nash.
Yeah, I know he is. I've heard. I listened to your podcast. I heard him talk about that as well.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah, I was going to say literally one of two maybe. Rich and I don't count. We listen to our episodes back, but I don't know if that really counts.
Well, if you get 6 people tonight, it's because I was on. So just make sure I get the ratings tomorrow morning. I want to know.
That's fair. So if you want to check out tickets, VCWProWrestling.com. You can check their Facebook page for the latest updates and announcements, wrestler profiles, events, etc. I got I bought front row this time because I bought front row the last time you guys were at the Masonic Temple. That was a lot of fun. I like being up close and being able to yell at people like Neil Sharkey. That guy's a dirt. I'll refrain from yelling anything too obscene at you. I know you're a family man. You come to the shows with your lovely wife and kids, so we'll keep it clean for the fam.
I appreciate that. Let me preface too. So we're talking about the event. So yeah, I ran down the entire card. I told you everything about it. Let me hit the basics on it. Right, Saturday, July 29th, Kroc Center in Norfolk is where it's located. The Salvation Army Kroc Center, which is a beautiful facility as well. Right, like we've got one thing I'll say about us is we try to go above and beyond and find some of the nicer venues in the area to host events. We want to make sure we have plenty of space because we have very big crowds, that tend to turn out for VCW. And so, we've this year alone, and we've been at Hampton High School, Norfolk Masonic Temple, Old Dominion. Now we're going back to the Kroc Center, which we were back there in February. But it's a very nice facility. And certainly I encourage anybody, if you live in Norfolk or live in Tidewater, you're looking for a gym or you're looking for somewhere. I mean, they've got a beautiful water park inside. It's a great location to check out, especially if you have a family. But yeah, and doors will open at 6:30 and bell time will be 7:30 for the event as well. And like you said, VCWProWrestling.com is where you go get the tickets.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of fun. You'll have a good time.
Yeah, so you've been involved with VCW since 2004, you said, but the promotion's been there since 1996. So how did you become aware of VCW, and what drew you in? How did you start paying attention? How did you weasel your way into the door there?
Funny. You know, I'm going to tell you I was thinking about, just because you said weasel, I was just going to not answer your question. But I'm going to actually go ahead and answer it. I'm going to tell you the real story.
Come on, it's a compliment. You're like Bobby Heenan.
Oh, funny. Okay. Yeah, nice.
He was a
nice
brain
spin.
and a weasel, yeah.
Nice little spin there. I'm the king of the spin in this podcast tonight, all right? So just let's keep the spin on my side. So I'll go back and tell you that in 1998, I went to my very first independent show. I used to stay at school late because my mother worked at the school where I went to high school, and I found out like on a Friday that an independent show was coming on Saturday, and I was like, I have to be there. I have to be. I was 15, you know. I was there first thing in the morning at like 10 o'clock in the morning, waiting for them to come set up. I hung out there all day. I was driving these guys crazy. I was bumping around the ring like they were throwing me around, doing things that probably they shouldn't have been doing. You know, I've since come to learn. And they said this promotion was VCW. So I said, okay. So I remembered that, all right? Fast forward to like 2004, when I meet Travis Bradshaw at a Ric Flair autograph signing is where I first met him, and started talking about getting in with VCW. And I said, I saw you guys have a show at my high school back in 1998. And he goes, we never did a show there. I said, no, you did. I'm like, I got in the ring. I've got it on tape, you know, whatever. You know. I would later show him this tape, and it turns out that it was another promoter that he had a falling out with that ran a show, called it VCW, and you know, and ran this like basically under the radar event and tried to make it look like it was. And there were literally like 6 people there. So like nobody knew the show was even happening. Like I said, I went to the school and I found out the day before that they were renting the building to do it. So it was kind of like a spite booking, as they like to call it. But that's like how that was like my first introduction to the wrestling business. So I was like, oh, this is the kind of stuff that happens. This is amazing. Like this is like how things work, you know. But yeah, so 2004 when I came around, I thought I was going to be a wrestler, and I wanted to try out. And so I paid to do a tryout. And it was me who, and you know, I'll be honest from this point forward, okay? 145 pounds, soaking wet at the time, you know, not in shape, had not been to a gym since high school, and a bunch of like guys who were like straight out of the military or currently in the military and in like amazing shape. And first thing they wanted us to do was like 1,000 like Hindu squats or something ridiculous. And I did them, and then I immediately vomited all over the bathroom in the facility. And I was laying there like unable to stand, covered in like puke. And like one person walks in, they look at me and they go, he's done. And they turn around and walk back out. Somebody else comes in. I don't want to say who because I don't want to peel back the curtain too much. But somebody else who still wrestles for us comes in and looks at me, and they basically like, oh, you said this is what you want to do, right? I said, yeah. They're like, well, you need to get up and get back out there. And they walked away. And I sat there. I thought for a second. I go, yeah, I probably should go back out there. So I go back out there. He stops the class, and he goes, I want everyone to look at this guy. We broke him. He was on the floor. He vomited all over the bathroom. He was done. And he came back out here. And he goes, are you going to get back in there and do it? I said, I'm going to try. He goes, that's right, you're going to try. He goes, I want all of you to clap for him because that's what this business is about. It's not about who has the most athletic ability right out the chute. It's not about, you know, who's, you know, gets it right away or any of that stuff. It's about who has the heart for it because, and I've come to learn since when you're out there, and not that I, you know much. I mean, like I know about it, but like I'm not trying to, you know, suggest that I know more than people who wrestle like all the time. But like you're really other people are putting their lives in your hands, and so you can't like have an off moment. You can't be like I'm just gonna dog it. You know what I mean? Like or you have to really be on point and really like fight through the tired and all the things that happen. You know, while you're out there and really like. You know, put your best foot forward at all times. And so that was like my introduction. So it's funny. So the tryout ended, and they were pulling everybody up, and they were talking about who they wanted to accept at the school and who they didn't want to. And I walked up there, and I'll never forget, like, I do an impression of Travis Bradshaw, okay? So Travis Bradshaw was the promoter at the time, and he goes, well, they told me that you don't really have any athletic ability, but you got some heart, so we'll find something for you to do. I go, okay. I said, well, I'm working on a film degree at ODU. I can videotape. And they go, that's what we'll have you do. And so that's how I got my foot in the door. Is I started I was ringside videographer for like 6-7 years after that. I didn't get anywhere near the ring for a very long time after my my tryout experience. So that's how I heard of VCW, got into VCW. I know it's a long, convoluted story, but I don't think anybody's story of how they got into the wrestling business is like very straightforward. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that story. That's sort of it's inspirational, even a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, a tear ran down my cheek.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I may also be sweating. It's kind of warm in this closet. So then how did you get from sort of running the camera to the director of operations role, and what all's involved in that role for the company?
Sure. So, I did well. The video thing worked out pretty well for me for a while. And then I just I feel like I'm a creative person by nature, and like I'm kind of like OCD about my creativity, where like I like nitpick. I still get ridiculed for it today, but like I'll have an idea and I'll be like, this is a great idea, and I'll be like, this is the only idea. And then like a week will go by and I'll be like, wait, I picked my idea apart. Not a good idea anymore. It needs to be this instead, right? And then it's like you kind of make adjustments. Well, I'd always like kind of had that sort of mindset. I was always interested in the creative of wrestling, but I was like, I'm not qualified to, book a wrestling show or write a wrestling show. Like that's not. I didn't think that would ever be in the cards for me because I wasn't I didn't feel like at the time like I'm not qualified to do anything but hold a camera. Is how I felt about myself. But I went to their training school every week for years, like because I wanted to see what I could learn just like by watching and listening to what people are saying and try to kind of cross that threshold from just being a fan to being like someone who like wants to like create and be a part of the industry, which is like there's a huge difference between those two things. So I just want to let me say too, if you're a fan and you're watching this and your goal is to get into the wrestling business, like you have to not be, I mean you'll still be a fan, like we're all fans, but you have to not be like a super fan like in order to really like grasp what it is to do this, right? So one day like the person who was booking the show just like quit, and the promoter was like, you want to book the show? And I was like, no. And he goes, well, we got a show in like 2 months and someone's got to book it. And I was like, I'm not doing it. And then like the next week I come back to the school again. He goes, you sure you don't want to book the show? I asked so-and-so and they don't want to do it. I said, I really don't want to do it. I'm like, I'm not qualified to do it. No one's going to listen to me. Like, they're not going to take me seriously. Third time he asked me, I was like, fine. I was like, I'll book the show with you. We can work together. How about that? I was like, but you have to tell everyone what to do because I'm not going to be that guy who goes in and like acts like he knows everything because I know nothing, right? And so that was in late, I don't remember, 2007 maybe, 2006. I don't remember what year that was, but that's how I got into the creative aspect of it. And I did that for 3, 4, 5 years. We had a late night TV show on Fox 43. We brought in Ric Flair. We did a bunch of cool stuff. Then there was some turmoil, and I decided that I was going to get out of that role, and so I kind of went back to the camera for a little bit, and then I was like, hey, I want to be a manager now, and I started learning how to do that, and I worked with some very smart people who kind of helped me with that, and I was an on-air, like, character, like, getting a lot of heat for a long time, and then, then this opportunity to, like, kind of not have to deal with the creative is very challenging, right? And so like I still like can have like a fingerprint, to a degree on things if like I want to give input or whatever, but I trust our team to really make the right decisions when it comes to whether it's creative or whatever whoever's role is, right? Like I really like have wanted to get to a point where I could kind of like oversee everything but not necessarily have to work on the finite detail of things because of what I described to you earlier, where I'm like, I'm telling you, I'll have an idea and I'll be like, this is great. And then I just like, no, I got to change it, because I get like very I think we all search for the perfect, because wrestling is a very there's a lot of improvisation, and then there's sometimes you walk through things too. You walk through things too, but I think we're all in search of the perfect match or promo or show, and I think that brings a level of OCD behavior to it, because there is no such thing, and you just kind of always are trying to make it better, because we know that people like you guys are going to pick it apart, right? Like when you're doing a podcast. So we want to make sure we're making it as good as it can be. So that's how I got there. It was another long, convoluted journey to get to kind of where I'm at right now. But, I like I said, we have a really good team, and I'm most comfortable in this role because I feel like I'm good at big picture stuff, where I'm looking from the outside and going, okay, we need to get this done, and then I just assign the people and say, hey, let's get it done. And and like I said, it's been working well. I mean, it's been doing good for the last few years, so hopefully it continues that way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, the OCD thing, I definitely think is the one thing that definitely appears in professional wrestling all over the place, especially when you look at wrestlers like The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, who really stretched out their careers that some people would say they should have maybe stopped, but it was because they were still looking for that perfect time for them to stop. They've already tried to have the perfect matches, but now they need to find the perfect way to end their careers, and I think that's definitely something that carries through, and then so they just keep trying and trying and trying. So who are the other key players behind the scenes for VCW, and what are their roles?
So I don't want to divulge too much. I thought about this question.
Well, of course not.
I will say that Jonathan Elliott is our talent coordinator. I know we did that we divulged that at Old Dominion. I will say that as much as I don't like George Pantis, he is very integral to our process. Brandon Matheny has become very integral to our process. Since my good friend Blake Chadwick, who's Blake Howard now at WWE, at NXT Level Up, has moved on to greener pastures, Mr. Matheny has had to step up and help with certain roles, and he's done a great job. He's done a great job. So there are others certainly as well that help us. So, but again, I don't want to get into too much detail. I try to expose too much. I kind of like our fans and those that follow us to kind of see it like Wizard of Oz, see the wizard, right, or see the great and powerful Oz, but not see the man behind the curtain, so to speak, right?
Right.
I feel like that destroys the illusion, right? Because a lot of what we do is kind of like a magic trick too. I think there's an element of that to it as well.
Yeah, it's like back in the old days with the WWF, no one really knew that Vince McMahon was calling everything. They had Jack Tunney and Gorilla Monsoon and stuff, but it was all Vince doing the deeds. And honestly, I think that's something that's missing in professional wrestling nowadays, and that's why I will honestly tell you that I had a great time at those two shows, and it's because of the excellent suspension of belief that VCW does. You don't know what's happening, you don't know what could happen, and it all is presented in such a great way that I found it very enjoyable. So
we appreciate that. I have a philosophy. I feel like, wrestling. I mean, I think Eric Bischoff has said this, and he's like somebody I have studied very closely when I make decisions on things. But I think that he said back in the '90s they did focus groups on wrestling fans, and a lot of them were saying surprise, the element of surprise. They love surprise. And I think that WCW got a little wild with that toward the end, where it was just nonsensical surprise. But I think if you have calculated surprise, you give people enough, but not too much, right? And they can still follow whatever your thread is, your story thread is. That's the balancing act that really makes it work, And our goal is to provide something that's if it's your first time there, you can follow it. It's not so convoluted. It's not too insidery to where you just don't. You have to know all the terms and have 60 years of wrestling knowledge to understand what our references are. Like, we're not that, and that, there's stuff out there that's like that, and it's very good. It's very clever. But that's not that's not the audience we're like driving for. We want to get a little bit of everybody.
Yeah, Rich and I have talked about this on the show a little bit, that your promotion does have a little bit of an old school feel in that way, and that's a compliment in that, that what's going on in the ring and between the people is what matters, and it's not about like, I don't know, it's not about how many flips you can do or how many like clever references to other matches from Japan you can work in, and to me that stuff gets real old real quick. So it's refreshing almost to like first of all to go to a live show and mix it up with a bunch of people who are just honestly just excited to be there, excited to see their favorites, excited to boo the heels, excited to say Jerry sucks or whatever it is they want to say. Like, and that's it's a lot of fun. It's like it's theater with a pulse,
It's like the old. It's kind of a bit of the old school. Yeah, like your grandpa would want to go to the wrestling matches down at the Armory, as opposed to like, let's go to a taping of Monday Night Raw, where like you might see 2 matches, 3 matches, and you're there for 3 hours. Meanwhile, this was action packed. It kept going, but there was something there for everybody. So. Good job.
We appreciate that. And, again, you have to, like, differentiate yourself, right? I mean, because to your point, you can go to – we've had many times where, like, Raw is going to be here 2 days after our show, and I'm like, great. Like, now I got to figure out, how do you convince people, hey, come to this independent show, or if you can only afford one, you want to come to our show, not go to Raw, right? Which I've come to find out people usually will go to both if they really want to go to both, right? But I think you really have to find a way to like differentiate yourself, and especially with so many different independents all over the country, like right now, like it's really hard to kind of stand out. And so my philosophy has been we have just consistently attempted to run the most solid product we can. So when our name comes up, people go, oh, well, they've had really great matches, or they've had, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm. I'm playing the long game, right? Like we're not trying to like just get like quick social media clicks. We're building a base based on the volume, the content and the quality of the content. And I think that's, why we're where we're at right now, and why things are still just kind of moving at a steady incline.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue to the next question. So when we did our little panel at ODU last early June, I guess, we talked a little bit about how the popularity of pro wrestling is kind of cyclical and, kind of goes up and down every 15, 20 years or so. And big time wrestling is doing great right now. WWE is pulling down serious numbers every week. AEW is hanging in there. They definitely have their devotees. If you get on wrestling Twitter enough, you think that these two are going to like start the second Civil War any day now. But like to me, like the more exciting thing is actually this sort of thriving indie wrestling scene. I think Rich started paying attention to the NWA and their YouTube shows and stuff, a while back before it was hip. But it's cool to see it kind of like thriving, and it gives a lot of people more opportunity to work in the business, and also it gives more fans the opportunity to experience like live wrestling. So just kind of curious, your thoughts on the indie scene from an insider on that scene, and kind of where do you see things now, and where do you think they're going?
It's crazy to think, because like I remember when I was a kid, like, I mean, late 80s, early 90s, like Hulkamania was running wild, and everybody my age was like way into wrestling. And then like I got to be like 10, 11, whatever, and wrestling was at like its lowest point from like 93 or 92 to like 95, whenever it finally NWO came around, and Stone Cold and all that stuff started up, and then it was like I was a teenager, and it was like, it's funny because I think about this like all the time, and it's that like, I remember being really like everyone asking me my opinion on wrestling all the time in school, to everyone be like, why do you watch that fake shit? Like all the time. I can say shit, right? Is that okay? But everybody's saying,
yeah, you
okay,
can say all the words.
All right. Everyone's like, why do you watch that fake shit? Like, to like back to, I remember one day very specifically, I was like standing at the urinal in high school, and this guy who'd never talked to me before walks up next to me and goes, "Hey man, you watch Raw last night?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, but we can talk about this later." Give me a minute. But it was like everybody all of a sudden wanted to know because they knew me as a wrestling guy, so they all wanted to and that's actually how Blake Chadwick and I met. I'll tell that story real quick. Like, it was funny because he's a couple years younger than me, and somebody told him there's another wrestling guy that goes to school here. And he was like, "No, there isn't. I'm going to find this guy." It's like he came to, was he going to fight me? He's coming to fight. This is the way he tells the story. And then we met each other. We got to be friends, So, but it's I think at that time in the business, for those of us that went through that cycle of this, we were very much very protective over our feelings about it, because I think that it's you get kind of pigeonholed as being well, why do you watch that dumb wrestling, right? And I think that now the explosion of independence, I think there's a whole generation of people out there that are my age and maybe millennials, a little bit younger than me, who are in that same boat, where they went through that same they rode that same wave, man, and they decided they were going to go out there and create what they wanted to create, and that's why there's so many flavors of ice cream. And again, I'm not I don't think our way is the only way to do it. I think our way is the best way to do it in our market. I think that there is a market outside of just Hampton Roads for what we do too. We've done events in other parts of Virginia too that have been successful. I think there's even a market. I know there's a market even outside of that because we have, almost 10,000 Facebook followers. They're not all from Virginia, and we've got almost 5,000 people on YouTube, and we've got whatever it is 1,500, 2,000 people on Instagram, and a lot of these people are coming from outside of the area. So I know there's a market specifically for what we do, but there are so many niche markets within the niche of professional wrestling. It's crazy, and I would like to think that the fans are so fiercely loyal at this point, and they've been through so much, that this wave of, at least with the independents, is going to last for a long time. Barring any major controversies or anything that could kind of derail wrestling again for another couple of decades. But yeah, no, I'm very optimistic about the future of it.
Yeah, I've kind of felt that WWE over the last 10 years has just kind of left room for other wrestling kind of thing. They have a very distinct product, and you can like it, but it also doesn't cater to a lot of wrestling fans that are out there, especially the people that were into the more edgy Attitude Era, or the people that were into ECW so much. Just as two examples. And so that definitely leaves a window for stuff. And their product doesn't look quite the same as how it did back in the Hulkamania days, and that's something that some people want, and that leaves room for more traditional looking wrestling to occur and stuff. So I definitely think at any point probably WWE could decide to where, okay, well, we're not going to start doing all that stuff and pull away. But I think they might be under the mindset nowadays that might be bad for business, because they can basically use all the indies as a minor leagues almost. It's almost a minor league structure.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're always going to have their preferred avenues for training people, though. I mean, I just think that, I don't think there's going to be a great squashing of the independents like there was of the territories, but I think that, I'm sure that maybe they see some value in it, but they go through periods too where they're well, we're only going to sign people if they're a football player or a track star, and then they'll switch and they'll be well, we're only going to sign people if they've been on the indies for 15 years and they know how to work, right? It just depends on what the need is. But yeah, no, it's definitely, I hate to say it like this, but I feel even if they wanted to squash everything, how are you going to squash you cut one head off and Hydra, it's going to grow, there's going to be 5 more the next day, just the way that it works right now. But no, again, I think it's really cool that there's so many varied promotions. And I think the real, I feel like with when you have multiple independents, especially if they're in like a close, within a certain close like proximity to each other, the diversification of what everybody offers is what's really going to benefit everybody. When you have, if promotion A is offering this brand of wrestling and promotion B is offering this brand of wrestling with different rosters, then the fans have a reason to go to both shows, right? It's, when things get too close to each other, and that's what I was talking about, like us trying to diversify ourselves from what other people do, right? And like what other promotions do. Because like, why would you watch what we're doing if like you can see it 12 other places? You have to,
Right.
We have a very specific like roster of people, a very specific way of doing things. And like a lot of the people on our roster, they wrestle at like promotions that do things totally differently, and then that's great because it gives them some diversification in their portfolio as well.
I think you just look at folks like Matt Cardona, who you're bringing in for your next show. You have he has worked for WWE before. He could be working for them. He could be working for AEW if he wanted to. He showed up there for a while, but he's pretty much chosen not to. He wants to work the indies. He wants to circulate around and have those options, and I think that's a very telling sign of what's going on. Same with Brandon Scott. Brandon Scott could probably get signed to an NXT contract. I don't know if he wants to, but he could. But I know he works with MCW, he works with you guys, he works with some other folks too. So it's these options that are suddenly now there that I think are really healthy for the business.
For sure, and it raises the bar because like everybody works really hard. I mean that's another thing is like and the wrestling, like I love the wrestling from the 80s and 90s. Like I'm not by no means am I saying anything negative about the quality of the wrestling from that time. But if you were to compare like the technique from those eras to the technique of today, and like how and people like to poo-poo on like the wrestlers of today for like they don't know psychology or they do too many high spots or whatever. And like some of that might be true, some of that might be warranted for certain people, But like when you watch just the sheer technique of like how they're hitting things and like the athletic ability and the things they're doing, it is like you can tell it's been fine-tuned over many generations to get to that point, and that somebody taught something to somebody else who then tried something new, who then taught what they knew to somebody else, and it's been passed down, and it's just gotten more and more fluid, to the point now where you hear people complain sometimes that it's like it's almost too fluid. It doesn't look like it almost looks like it's like too choreographed, which is a complaint I'll sometimes even say, But I think that's just the nature of the beast. And I think when you're so good, then it becomes, the little mess ups that we used to, or little botches as we like to call them, that you would see, right? Like they don't really like exist the same way that they used to. There certainly are still mess ups, but it's not the same as it was 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, so that actually kind of segues into our next question for you. Is that we've seen recent VCW talent, Logan LaRue and Brandon Scott, pop up on the major promotions here, and then Action Andretti from MCW suddenly got over, surprising everybody on AEW, and they've has transcended that enhancement talent role that frequently the folks are subjected to, and we think that that's really cool to see, and we appreciate that there's that kind of flexibility in working with VCW and then the big guys. So we're just curious about like how do those arrangements work when a guy gets a call? So like if WWE or AEW is rolling into Norfolk and they need someone to put Wardlow over, do they call you guys, or do they just contact
it depends
the talent directly?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, there's different, and again, I don't want to peel back too much of that process, right? Because I don't want to expose what somebody else's process is. But I can tell you that it happens multiple ways, right? Sometimes the talent will reach out. They'll provide like a tape or something, and they'll want to try to get booked, and then they'll get in that way, or they'll know somebody, or whatever the thing is. We've certainly had people ask before, and be like, hey, can you send X number of people or whatever? Like, I don't want to get into the details of who, what, when, where, or why, but it certainly has happened before, right? it's a little bit of all three. And then sometimes you have people, like you use Brandon as an example, where like they all know Brandon, like he's been doing the extra stuff for them for years.
Yeah.
Like they know where he lives, they know where he'll where he is easy for him to travel to. So if they have a need, they'll just call him and say, hey, we need you to, the person who's in charge of that will call him and say, hey, I need you here on this date, and he'll usually get like a couple of dates at a time, for that as well. So there's a few different ways that it happens. I don't think there's like really any real one way, but I can say that whatever my advice to anybody that ever gets one of those positions, even if you just show up and they don't even use you, they just like have you there. Like you need to be thankful that you're there, like be thankful for anything they give you, because you're going to be around the tippy top of talented folks in your art form, like just by being there. And I mean, there's, have conversations with people, like, talk over with them, like, if they're willing to, right? Like, tell them what you're looking for to get out of the wrestling, I mean, the network, networking is very, very important. So, I think because sometimes people get like kind of down on like, oh, well, that guy's just doing a job on TV, like, or whatever. Like, I mean, like, I feel like that's great. You got paid to be on TV. like,
yeah.
What's wrong with that?
You had to work 2 minutes and take like 3 moves.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and you helped establish somebody else, like who's being built, like it's a job, at the end of the day, it's a job. Like, I think some people get stuck in their own head sometimes, and they like, whether you want to call them like, I guess I use the term mark, whether you want to call them marks for themselves or whatever, like they feel I'm too good for that. Like, okay, whatever. Like it's a job. Like go do, if I told my employer like I'm too good for that, like I'd be fired. Like it's just the way that it, it's just the way it usually works, So
I've gone back and started watching Monday Night Raw from the very beginning. And that's back in the day when they would have enhancement talent come in to put over people like Mr. Perfect or Razor Ramon and stuff like that. And you can see the good ones and you see some bad ones. Mm-hmm. Just one episode I just watched late last week was the guy totally messed up taking the Perfect Plex from Mr. Perfect, and Mr. Perfect was so angry that he punched him after the match. Caught on camera, he punched him, called him a bad name, and threw him out of the ring. Like, so you might think that it's lesser work, but it's not. It's a definite skill to be enhancement talent.
That's
for sure.
important. Yeah.
Think about how many people have been signed that have done that work. Mick Foley, Matt and Jeff Hardy, Scotty Too Hotty. I mean, like, these are guys that like did enhancement work for a long time, and they got signed and they all became big stars. Like, it's not, I don't think there's any shame in doing any sort of work for a major, no matter how big or small, for a major promotion. I think if you get that sort of work, then good for you. That's just my. Other people have different opinions, but like that's just my perspective on it. And if you really want to watch some good squash matches, man, I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and watched Evil Doink the Clown after I watched that Dark Side of the Ring. If you want to watch some squash matches that were like a guy, when somebody screws up, he is not nice to them. Like, go watch Evil Doink the Clown. I watched so many one day, and I was just like, man, this is. Like, I forgot how much I liked like Matt Bourne's work, like, and I just like,
Doink.
Yeah, he was great.
You guys should talk, because Rich is a huge Doink fan.
Are you?
I love
I
Doink.
bust his chops all the time, saying that Doink's his all-time favorite wrestler.
Doink the Clown is a genius.
He won't admit it.
What a
Genius
short
gimmick.
What a short period of time that guy was like in that gimmick, right? And like he just made such an impact. Still to this day, you go back and you watch it, you're like, man, like some of this stuff is like really like low-key funny. Like I mean, he really knew what he was doing, like every like thing he did with that gimmick.
And he had weird submission moves too, which added to the thing. Like he had his finisher for a while was this thing where he like the person would be sitting upright on the mat, and he would sit on their shoulders and then grab like their right ankle and pull it up towards their face.
Yeah.
Like
I had a conversation with somebody last week who I won't name, and I was like, I think somebody needs to bring back the stump puller. And they were like, it's the dumbest move. I said, no, it's not. I said, how insulting is that? You're sitting on a guy, the back of his head, you're pulling his leg up and he can't get out. It's like, it's the most demeaning submission hold. I said, that is a great finishing move, and the person did not agree with me. I'm like, okay.
I think you could get it over. I think if you found the right person to just fucking sell it, I think you could get that move over.
You know what? You sold me. I'm gonna when I beat Benjamin Banks on July 29th, I'm gonna embarrass him. I'm gonna put him in a stump puller at the end of it. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to train this week, and I'm gonna get someone to help me show me how to put it on properly, so he can't get out of it.
Yeah, Ray Apollo is still kicking around. Maybe you can get him to help you out.
Yeah. I can confirm that now that Ray Apollo is the Doink that I met a while ago.
Okay.
So that was Ray Apollo. He's the one that's doing the circuit as Doink the Clown on autograph signings now. But you can tell when he takes over because Ray Apollo does not do the stump puller. He does the whoopee cushion from the top rope as the finisher.
Well, Matt Bourne did that too. I mean, they all, but I think, you're right. Ray really popularized it, right? When they brought in the, and then when they needed a good guy doing the clown, I think that I don't think Matt Bourne probably was thrilled about, and from interviews and stuff I've heard with him, he wasn't really thrilled about having to change Doink from being like, Krusty the Clown to being like Bozo the Clown, and I think that's, it probably made more sense to give that to somebody else who was more in tune with what was needed for that.
I now like you because you like Doink, so I apologize for everything I said earlier.
I knew I would get over with you. I just had to. It only took an hour, but it worked.
Just had to find the right avenue.
Yeah.
The best way to Rich's heart is through Doink the Clown.
Pretty much.
It's an old saying, but it's true for a reason. So let's see. So we don't want to keep you all night, although we could talk about Doink the Clown and Raw and jobbers and so just a couple of thoughts from your last answer. So when we talked to Brandon Scott, and you guys should go back and listen to that episode because it was a lot of fun. But he told a pretty good story about going up to I think it was Raw, and he was Arn Anderson was kind of like working with him back behind the scenes, and he did a good job for him. He did a good job on the Monday night match, and Arn Anderson's like, "Hey kid, you want to come back and work on Friday for SmackDown?" And he's like, "Hell yeah!" So you're talking about, you never know, right? Like, talk about rubbing shoulders with some of the greats. I can't imagine like having Arn Anderson being like, "Hey, good job, kid." What a really cool experience. No matter what it paid. So. But we've really enjoyed talking to Brandon, and we talked to the poor, and they have some good insights on kind of the history and the business of wrestling, and we've really a good seeing their work along with you got some really top notch folks on your roster. Like I said, Dirty Money is great. The Greek God Papadon he is a fantastic heel. I like that guy. Logan is super like technical and smooth. I like that. Like he could do it this anywhere. I think Alex Devine's kind of a young upcoming talent. You got Devontae, who's like built like a brick shit house. So how are you feeling about the sort of the depth of your talent roster at the moment? And are there some areas where you want to kind of build it out, or you feeling pretty good? And talk us a little bit about that.
Well, our talent coordinator has done an excellent job. I'll say that. And I give him a hard time all the time because he's been my friend for like 10 years. But like I do that from my heart because I know, and I've told him before, like I think he does a very good job at finding, talented cats to come in and, ply their trade here. And he's very good at figuring out who is going to have a great match with who. Or whom. I don't know what the proper usage is there, but
whatever. It's a wrestling podcast. Don't worry about
it. but no, I really like. I don't think we're like lacking anywhere. I mean, I think he's done an excellent job, and I think that like he there's still like a huge, vast ocean of talent out there that can always. There are only so many matches you can have it on a show before like people like are burnt out. So we try to. Progress. It's a progressive thing. Some people you bring in every once in a while. Some people you've got, if the crowd really likes them or they win a championship, I mean, they're going to be there all the time, right? But I really think he's doing a great job. And to your point, you just named, 5 or 6 people that are all really good, and they're on, varying positions in the card on varying nights. They could pretty much work anywhere they wanted to. I mean, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah, that's great. We're hoping to get some more of those guys on here. Like I said, we've really enjoyed talking. I think Rich, really wants to get Dirty Money maybe for the next go around. He's had a bunch of belts and stuff.
Yeah.
Papa Don sounds good. I'm afraid he'd yell at me though, and I might cry. He seems kind of like
Same.
He seems kind of intense.
Both of those
I'm
guys,
a little fragile. I can't.
Both of those guys are veterans, and they're great. They'd be great to talk to. I mean, they'd be great. They could tell you guys all kinds of things, so they'd be great to talk to.
Let's hit you with some rapid fire questions here to wrap this up.
All right.
So we're going to come right at you here. Favorite wrestler and manager?
Oh, favorite manager is probably, if I say Bobby Heenan, I feel like that's everybody's answer, but I do feel like it's Bobby Heenan. I think a close second to Bobby Heenan though is Jimmy Hart. And I don't think enough people say Jimmy Hart, but Jimmy Hart managed to be like a what they call a bumping manager. And usually that's like the kiss of death. Once you touch the manager, there's no heat left. Jimmy Hart got beat up all the time for years, for like 40 years, yeah. and kept his heat. I'm like, it's crazy. Like, you have to really be talented to do that, or be really annoying, which is what I think is good to be as a manager. You have to be find that thing. And I think with the megaphone and everything, he just was so good.
He's a genius.
Oh yeah.
He's a genius.
Oh yeah.
And he did both heel and face managing, and
he did,
kind of switched back and forth. Oh, we just lost Rich again.
Oh, that's all right. He didn't want to hear who my favorite wrestler was, so
he'll hop back in. And favorite wrestler?
So I said it. I said on the panel, and I mean it, that Andy Kaufman is I've got Man on the Moon poster behind me, but Andy Kaufman is probably my favorite wrestler, which is funny to say, but it's because he didn't. This is going to sound like I'm being lazy. He didn't have to do much, but he had the people so upset at him, they wanted to strangle him, and he got booked in Memphis over and over and over and over again, and was selling out houses and didn't do hardly anything. And I feel like that, the technical, I could very easily say to you, oh, Eddie Guerrero is a great talent too, right? Because his charisma is great, but technical work in the ring, I don't think you get much better than Eddie Guerrero, or Kurt Angle is really great to watch too. These guys that are really good at the technical stuff. I could name somebody like that and say they're my favorite wrestler, and work rate wise probably are my more favorite than Andy Kaufman. But I think it really takes a special individual to do as little as possible and make people react so gutturally to what they're doing. And so I think that's why I take that as an inspiration for myself without having much athletic ability, to take that and be okay, well, if I can get a reaction. I mean, that's what everybody's there for. They're there to react, whether they're there to react for the moves, or they're there to react for the storyline, or they're there to react for the promo. I mean, you're there to yell and have a good time. And so often I found myself sitting at wrestling shows and looking around and being was watching people react and what they're reacting to and what they're not. And that's what you want people to go home and have had a good time, and to be unable to hear a little bit when they get home. Feel like they went to a rock concert because you want them to come back next time. So I feel the getting that reaction to me is what I usually use to determine who my favorites are. And so I'll just stick with Andy Kaufman, I guess.
Good choice. You don't hear that often, and I think it's partially because you mentioned the Man on the Moon movie, and I think what people know these days of that is just that movie made it seem like Andy Kaufman wrestled for a week.
No, he wrestled for a long time. Yeah,
it was a long-running feud and constant. Yeah, good call. Favorite wrestler entrance music?
Ooh, I really like Gangrel's, even though he DDT'd me, and I've got heat with him now because he did that to me. I really like. I mean, his is really. It has withstood the test of time. 20 years later, I could still listen to that one and be yeah, this is a good one. But I love that, and I love Real American will always have a soft spot in my heart. When it comes crashing down, I get that tear comes to my eye, and I'm like, man, I'm 6 years old again.
Inside.
It does hurt inside, yeah.
Just hurts so much,
All right, your favorite WrestleMania?
One of the ones I went to, which was 17 in Houston. I think everybody calls that the best one, right? I was graduating high school that year. My dad was like, "Let's go to WrestleMania." So we went to Houston, Texas, and went to WrestleMania, and it was amazing.
Damn.
Yeah,
fuck yeah, Dad.
Yeah, it was great. And they had one of my favorite WrestleMania matches of all time, the gimmick battle royal. See, you're really getting insight into like what I like and what I don't like tonight, because I'm telling you, Andy Kaufman's my favorite wrestler, and I love the gimmick battle royal. Like, again, things that just like get a great response from people. Like, that's what it's that feeling you get when you're watching something. That's really what what inspires me to do what we do.
We like that the Iron Sheik won that one basically because he was in such bad shape. He couldn't
throw over the top rope. Yeah. Yep.
So he just stayed in and won.
So I guess that would also be your favorite live wrestling event you've attended. Or
that one was really good. Yeah. Let me. I've also been to a couple Starcades. I went to and it's not like a great show, but I went to like the Starcade that was like Battle Bowl, where like Sting and Luger wrestled at the end or whatever. Like, and like it was a really. I was young because it was at Scope, and I was young enough to where like I remember very specific things about it, because I was like, man, this is a big show we're going to, it'd be hard for me to say. And I've been to like TV. I went to they had a show in Hampton back in like '98, and it was the night that like Raw was in Hampton and Nitro was at Scope. And I remember that Hampton Raw show very vividly, just because of the fact that they were on opposite sides of the water, like competing or whatever. And like that might have been my favorite show I ever went to, not just based on quality of show, but because of what it still to this day represents. Right. And like for it to happen in Hampton and Norfolk is like all the cities in the country, and it happened in southeastern Virginia on the same night during the apex of wrestling. Like it's crazy. It's crazy the odds of that.
I mean, that's an absolutely kind of iconic night. I mean, they show footage of that all the time.
Yeah.
Anything that mentions the Monday Night Wars, it shows up. And it's probably on the on like the B reel from like anything that WWE does, That's,
oh yeah.
So I'm just looked up Starcade '91. That's also the one, the Lethal Lottery. So
you guys need to watch it. My sister to this day will not watch wrestling because we took her to that, and like I think it was that show. Mick Foley did a thing where he used to spit in the air and he caught it in his mouth, and she was like, "Take me home." She's like, "I've had enough. I've had enough of that." So.
Is that the one with the 3 rings, or am I thinking
that's
of
World War
else?
III? I went to those as well. They had 2 of those in Norfolk too, and they were. See, I've been to so many shows. Like I haven't been in a long. I think the last live event I went to was in like 2012, so it's been a very long time. That's not a VCW show. Like it's been a very, very long time. But
that's a good. I'm just looking at this card. That's a good one. Lex Luger and Arn Anderson with Harley Race versus Terry Taylor and the Z-Man. Ricky Steamboat versus Cactus Jack. Sting and Abdullah versus Brian Pillman and Bobby Eaton. Vader and Mr. Hughes versus Rick Steiner and the Night Stalker. Who else is
there?
On
is
there?
a great spot on there with Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. So if you guys watch it, when the spot happens with Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker, I want you to know that is the spot I remember more than anything from that show, and that's again like a window into like the memorable moments and the things that like stand out to me when I'm watching wrestling like that. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we should watch it and have you on to talk about it, because we've done that with some other folks. We had Dr. Jess on, and she which one was that she went to? Was it
29? I think she said she went to WrestleMania 29.
Oh yeah. So we anyway, we had her watch. It was a Royal Rumble, I think, and then we talked about it with her. It was
Rumble 96, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, so you wanna plug the show one more time before we wrap it up for the evening?
So Virginia Championship Wrestling presents the Liberty Lottery. It's our biggest show of the year, the biggest independent wrestling show in Virginia of the year. It has been since 2007. I mean, for a very long time. Matt Cardona, the Indie God, will be wrestling Mr. Excellence Brandon Scott. Myself and The Reason will be winning the VCW Tag Team Championship from the Golden Pinky Society. Steph DeLander takes on Erica Lee in a one-on-one match. The Virginia Heavyweight Champion Board defends against Joe Keys. And then the 20-entrant Liberty Lottery match where the winner gets any championship match they choose, and the order of entrants are determined by random draw by you, the fans, because Jerry Stephanitsis is a man of the people, a man for the fans. I could very easily have just said we're going to do away with that stipulation if I didn't care about the people. So please let that be evidence that I care about the fans.
I don't think Rich is convinced, but I anyway appreciate you being on the show. You know, Rich.
Absolutely.
Rich is, we it is what it is. But we appreciate you being here and talking to us, and I'm excited for the show. I'll probably be texting Rich furiously from the front row. Maybe I'll put him on Zoom or FaceTime or something so he can boo you appropriately. So for tonight, remember you can find us at allthewrestlemanias.com. You can check us out on Facebook, Twitter at WrestleMania Pod, YouTube, Instagram, pretty much everything you got. If you want to drop us $5 for the cost of our equipment, and look at this arm I got a new arm. This is very exciting. I got a new table and everything. I'm much more comfortable here than I have been. So that's thanks to our fabulous listener support. If you go to ko-fi.com/allthewrestlemanias, you can drop us the cost of a cup of coffee, and we put it to good use so that we can put out the best quality program for you. So thanks again, Jerry, and I'm signing off. I'm Tim.
And I'm Rich.
And we will see you next time.